Dr. David Jamieson is one of my favorite people.
Hmm.
He was one of my favorite professors at BenU,
Hmm.
and he's one of the smartest, wisest people I know. And we share the same birthday,
Oh, wow.
March 25th.
Yes, absolutely.
Remember we
What
found
a,
that
what a,
out when you were teaching during that time.
oh, wow.
I'll never forget the AOM, I think it was management consulting
Yeah,
keynote you did.
yeah,
And you said that you were grateful for all of your life experiences,
yeah, yeah.
including the bullies in grade school.
Yeah, exactly.
Or maybe it was junior high or high school, I'm not sure. But
Yeah.
I don't think there was a dry eye in that place.
Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was such a moving speech, and especially those who have been bullied, like myself. So
Yeah.
it was just very moving, and um, and I'm just so excited to hear what you have to say about change and leadership. And I think we need to have you back again to really delve into this use of self and to talk about
Sure,
your
sure,
certificate program. But
sure.
I'm gonna turn it all over to you after I say. And I feel like I'm preaching to the choir a little bit, but if you haven't, please check out ISODC, International Society for Organization Development and Change. That's isodc.org. It is just a wonderful community of
Hmm.
people who are just committed to making the world a better place. And we would love to have you join us. So
That's great.
isodc.org.
Yeah. And my good friend Joanne Preston is still the president, I think, and she's been
Yes,
there for a
yes, she
long
is.
time. Yeah, she's really a good person. So
Yeah.
anyway, I want to welcome you all, and I'm really interested in sharing this. This is the latest work that I've been doing the last 4 or 5 years to think about what do I do next in my last chapter, number one, and how do I help to get things across to the next generation of that'll carry things forward way more than I am. So, and this is one of the things that I think has been in my mind for a long time, and I wanted to start sharing it with people. So let me see if I can get this to move. Okay, this is the keynote. I want to tell you what I'm trying to do. I want to tell you how I see the changed environment and the work world that we're in now as so different than the 40 years that I spent in the field. There's so many things different now that we have to take them into our thinking about how we design change and how we execute change. And so I'll talk about a couple different things to help that. But I want to first start with what I think has really changed and we have to pay attention to it. The issues that have faced the field of OD, this has bothered me for quite a while. And I think it's because one of the lucky things I had is that almost everybody I learned OD from were part of the founder group. I was
Mm.
at UCLA and there was 3 people there that were part of the founders of OD. And, uh, and then I went to Pepperdine, and at Pepperdine, they brought in almost every founder that was still alive to teach their master's people. And I would be the host for different weeks that where they had where they had these 8 day eight day sessions that they did. That's the one thing that was different than everybody else's, but it really worked well. And the cohorts got really into communities and learning. And so, but what bothered me is I want to tell you some that I think of, and I'm going to ask you if you can see some. What are the things we've had to face in the field of OD that has not brought us up to a well known professional um, professional system that people understand what OD really is. And uh, and then the next one is we need to work with core essence of OD and simplify how we design and execute. Um, and in time, if time, short discussion, what's missing what do we believe to. I'm gonna say what I think is the core essence now. I've worked on this since the year 2000. I've only written it one time back and then, and I haven't liked each one of them. So now with my latest version, and I'm going to share it with you, and then I'm going to ask you what might be missing. What do you think is part of the essence of OD? So let's start with the changed environment, and I'm going to ask some questions of you a couple of times. And if you have anything that you really want to get a question asked, we can do that because we have enough time, I think. So
Yeah, and we'd really like this to be a conversation. I mean,
yeah,
you can certainly, leave something in the chat, but just, just give a little shout out and ask your question because I just think that will make
yeah,
our time
yeah.
more meaningful.
That's fine. That's
Yeah.
fine with me. Yeah. So over the last couple of decades, that's the period I've been looking at, we have experienced significant changes in our workforces. And what's really interesting here is we've really shared the diversities for quite a number of years now, a couple of decades. We've done a lot of jobs of bringing more diversities in.
Hmm.
We've also have multiple generations that 20 years ago, we really didn't have that many generations. But now we have five,
Yeah.
and they're very different in their mindsets and their thinking. And and so what I've noticed, and the last time I was working with clients, I would learn from the leaders that they felt challenged because they were having trouble work working with some of the generations and understanding how they could be the leader to people who have very different ways of thinking about what they need and what they want, etc. And the other thing I've noticed is since we've had more diversities and more generations, there's more people who have a voice in the workforce now. When my father was in the workforce, his voice only said, "Yes, we'll do whatever you tell us to do." That's what the people used to do a long time ago.
Hmm.
That is not what people do anymore. And I think it's positive, but it's causing a lot of chaos and a lot of difficulty between the leaders and the workforce. So we need to pay attention to that. And the significant changes in all forms of technology. This one also has kind of floored me a little bit. In the last 15 years, I have seen more money go into technology development and less money going into human systems. And I think the problem with that is the different kinds of things they're dealing with is digital, machines, automations, AI, of course, and then more money, significant and speedy changes in technology. There's money there, it's significant, and the changes are happening faster.
Hmm.
And what has always bothered me because of the thing we used to teach called socio-technical systems, where every system is a social and a technical system and the core idea, the philosophy underneath of that is how to optimize human systems with technical systems. And that is what social tech used to do. And I think it's needed more today than it ever was in the 1980s. And and now we're doing all this technology, and most of the time it's causing the human system people difficult times in doing it, and not even it affects their own it affects their own roles. The amounts, types, and speeds of all changes affecting organizations. And what's also different is more of it comes from the environment now than it used to. And plus we have things driving internally of where they need changes. And we're affecting the organizations quite a bit. And we have digital, transformative, systemic, and we have a bunch of stuff that's piecemeal. A lot of people take a change, they throw it into a project team, and the project team are not the people who have to make the changes. So then they have to sell it to somebody else. And I think that's been a mistake for a few decades, in my opinion. But
Yeah.
and then all sectors of our environments. That's how futurists look at the environment. They have a set of categories that they look at. They've all been changing simultaneously instead of independently. And so now we're having political stuff, we're having technical stuff, we're having social value stuff, all seeming to change from the outside and affecting what happens inside an organization. So the government, economy, society, social values, climate issues, all those things that are in the environment are happening at the same time. And the environment is definitely less stable than it's ever been. But I remember working in the 80s and even early 90s where really the environment was rather stable. It wasn't changing so fast and so often.
Mhm.
The environment that is less stable, driving more change, needs from the outside and the inside. And then I think the last one is a very disruptive worldwide health pandemic that continues to change mindsets and affect many other aspects of our world. We're not done with the pandemic area yet. It's still carrying a lot of influence on what people are willing to do and where they're willing to work. And that seems to still be happening these days. So that's one thing about that. And a VUCA world for real. When we started studying VUCA, it wasn't real yet. It wasn't
Mhm.
the seriousness that it is today. And I'm working with another guy, and he's very good at describing the elements of VUCA and how they're all happening at the same time. And that's what's complexing everything for some leaders who know how to do the old time changes, but they don't know how to do the ones that have the complexity in them. So
And
that's,
that's volatile, uncertain.
yeah, it's volatility, uncertain, complexity, and ambiguity.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's pretty real today. And there's a lot of
Mhm.
examples of it by some companies that have had trouble and failed, and some that have come up with some good things to do. So this is how we have to think about our new environment and work world.
And I want to welcome those of you who have joined us.
Yeah, Pierre,
Some dear friends have joined us, so
good.
welcome. We want this to be really an exchange. So if you have a question, just give a shout out and or a comment, and that would be wonderful.
The last part of this environment and work world is that more change is impacting things systemically. It's not single departments or single divisions anymore. It's happening where it's affecting things in a systemic way. It requires more and better systems thinking. So I've seen a lot of people have studied system thinking, but in their practice, I haven't seen people do a really nice job of figuring out how the interdependent elements are affecting each other in the system. And that's where I think we have to see now. And the interactions among the parts, they're either dependencies or some are independent of each other. And more transformative changes are more needed now than ever. That when things are more systemic, the whole organization has to look beyond single projects and say, okay, we're doing, because the last place I worked with somebody, they had 16 projects that were all changes happening at the same time, and none of them were connecting. And they really didn't do that much very well. And my piece of it didn't work as well as it should have either, too, because there were other things moving at the same time. And that's just something that we have to open the broader view that we're always working in a system. I don't care what the leader asks you to do, wherever it is, it's part of a system. And finally, changes now in general are more complex, overlapping, continuous, and disrupting. So
Mhm.
the continuous and disrupting is what's causing leaders a lot of problems these days, I think, because they can't use the things that they've always assumed, and they can't have the right answers that they used to have. And then we think then what we think we know, understand, and creating many unknowns. So there's more unknowns for us to deal with. And I know even as a leader in small places that I've led, sometimes the unknowns are not something that you can find a right answer for. None of us can. and there's not enough data to tell us. But we have to use our best thinkers in dialogue to figure out what we think are the kinds of things that our people and our system are able to do that'll help us with the impact we're getting from a change. And I love this one. We never really manage change. I'm sorry that we called it change management for years. We are
Mhm.
not managing change. And what we're doing is we're designing change and we're executing it. And the system also has its way of making changes. And we are not the ones who manage that. But the more we know about our system, the more we can come up with options of action that we can take. And then my new word is we have to navigate change. We have to
I love
work
that.
ourselves around it. So it's time to navigate change now. So,
And we were just talking. I'm part of this group. I call it the man group, even though we've included some more women now. I was the
mhm,
first woman though, and that we were talking last night about Gen Z and how
yeah,
they're willing to say, I don't want to do it this way anymore.
that's right.
I mean, they're very comfortable sharing their uh, ideas and opinions and
Yeah,
to let you know their boundaries, I guess, which
yeah, yeah,
me as a Gen X, that's very different. In some ways, I'm kind of jealous of them.
yeah, yeah. I know. And we need to include those people and their thinking. There's a couple of different things that I've seen from some of them. Some of them are a little bit over generous about what they think they should be able to do and how fast they should move up and all that kind of stuff. I
Mhm.
think that one is what is pushing back some of the leaders. But I think in reality, their thinking and what it is that makes them want to not do some things and do things differently, we do need to hear that. That's why we need to bring people together so they can learn something from each other,
Yeah.
including a senior person and a Gen Z need to understand how to speak with each other. And I think that would really help a lot. And
Mhm.
so I think one of the things I wanted to ask you now is, since I've talked about what has changed our environment and work world, what do any of you see and what do you experience now that maybe I didn't quite cover here? What are the things that you think is making the world you work in so differently?
Yeah.
Anybody can speak up.
So,
We have
Dr.
some
James,
really good people here.
Dr. Yeah, Dr. Jameson,
Yeah.
one of the biggest things I see is just the way we communicate across the five different generations. When we look at that, we
Oh,
all have a style based on the way we grew up, right?
yeah,
And so
yeah,
for us, and this is within the church, I've noticed after COVID, the people are coming back, but the young people don't come back. And the thing
Mhm.
is, though, the communication style is a change. We go to
mm-hmm,
church and we look for a long sermon. They've learned to do things sweet and short. We go from text to Instagram. So they want sweet and short. So overall, we have to learn that the message has to take on the style of the generation. And
yep,
that's the biggest thing I see is because we fall apart when we can't talk to each other. I mean, I want
that's
the
right.
detail. They don't want to give the detail. They want to give the overlay. I've got to learn how to listen to the overlay and then speak with them about how to do the detail. That's
Yeah,
one of the key things. And now, and the last side I have with communication is we live in two different worlds. The older group like us, we like to get out and socialize. We grew up in a social world. Well, they've had COVID, and so majority of them they don't have to come to a spot. They can do it virtual. So now we need to look at how do we have the blended world, right? We've got
yeah,
the technology and we use it when we're in a crisis like COVID. But
Right.
when we come out, we need to understand how does the world look different and how do we pull it together? So that takes me to this whole thing with communication is a
yep,
core, but then like you were saying, we got to learn how to do a program with integrated projects,
yep,
not a program with multiple projects. Multiple projects don't necessarily know how to get strategy. And so when you look at the way they communicate today, It's a picture, it's short and it's sweet, and it does whatever it needs to do for the niche. But it doesn't necessarily look backward or look forward to see where the opportunities are. So it's not a wrong, it's not a right. It's the way they do it. So for me, as an OD person, I try to look at what's going on and
Yeah.
then what are the different OD modules I can use. And when I say module program, the dialogic, the appreciative inquiry, the appreciative intelligence, how do they overlay to make a whole system?
Hmm.
Because most of the time, what I'm seeing now when I get there is you're right. They have a project, they don't have a program, but
That's
they
right.
build the project based on the gap, not necessarily focusing on what it should do next or what the problem was before. Right now is the issue, and say they build for the issue, which is a project versus a program. So
Thank you,
communication,
Dr. Sweeney.
you're welcome. And I'm through. I'm through preaching.
No, no, no. That was, you hit the nail on the head.
Yeah, thank you very much, because I like what you said is about how we communicate with the cross generations. And I think one of the problems is many of us start the talking. And I think what we should do is start the questioning first. We
Yes.
need to hear what people have to say. And that's just not what's in the mindset of many people who have been in workforces for 30, 40 years or something like that. And I think that's where the leaders have to start thinking differently and say, I don't understand exactly what they're saying, so I have to stop and listen to it. And I think that would be great.
And I
Diane,
don't, oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Diane,
Well, you were asking what other issues. I was thinking about work-life balance, which
yeah,
wasn't a thing in the 80s and 90s. It was just,
right,
work, work, work. And now this new generation has brought the idea of, no, I want to balance my work life with my
right,
home life. And that's a healthy thing. But when you have different generations who view that differently, that you have that conflict. And so I think that's another piece that has changed in the last 20 years.
right. If we had a question and asked people how much time should they get to take off, we would have five different answers, I think.
Right, right.
I
Yeah.
think that's what we get. You're absolutely right.
And
Okay.
I feel bad about how, I know you did say politics, but we are so divided politically. I had breakfast with a group of gals this morning, and they waited till some of them waited till one person left, and then they kind of started talking politics, and it just made me feel kind of sad because I feel
Yeah.
like we should be able to express ourselves. And in some ways they were being conscientious, but in
Mhm.
other ways, I found it disappointing.
It is, yeah. And I've even seen members of families who aren't speaking to each other anymore just because they got divided in
Mhm.
politics. And people had to take their choices, because when we had Biden and we had Trump, people were easily 100% different, and they would not see the middle anywhere. There wasn't a middle, in fact.
Right.
They weren't working together. So that's really difficult. And some of that affects a lot of people. Some of it affects a lot of companies. And otherwise, you can just forget about it and don't talk about politics. But you still find that there's things that happen in your organization that get in the way. So
Yeah.
yeah. So let's see what the next. I want to say this time I want to talk about our field. And I've been in the field now for 60 years, and I love that luck that I had, because I started early, and I got a doctorate early, and I was the youngest doing it, but the people I learned from really made a difference for me. And since the early years, we've grown very inclusively and did not integrate all the elements, options, or forms of practice. A lot of things, we kept accepting everything into OD that people wanted to throw in. And I watched that in the 70s and the 80s in particular. And so I kept seeing it, because we have no professional group, even our ISODC, our ODN, or even the OD in Europe. nobody has a large enough membership to actually take some control over our profession. And then all of us join that, and all of us have an ethics, all of us have some policies and some ways that we understand. Instead of having 50 definitions of OD, we start having things that we can agree to. And oddly, I've found all my friends in OD do not agree very easily. And that's one of the problems we've had for quite a few decades, I think.
I think we should all merge.
Yeah, right. And that would help. That would help if we could do it. But I worked one time with ISODC and ODN, and because the person who owned ISODC back then really had nothing, didn't want to do anything with ODN. They just thought it was different completely, and they didn't like it. So this has led to much confusion outside of our field. So let's think about all the people who are our clients and what they hear and what they see and what experiences they've had. And they're the ones who constantly say, so what is OD really? And the inside, as too many people define it differently, the field has fragmented with many disciplines leaving. The ones that left that I know of, we were doing coaching at the beginning, and there was no coaching professional group. The org design people left and separated us. When I was doing my courses for my doctorate, we had org design in OD. And then so coaching and org design, and then I think that training was always a part of our changes. We always had to change people in something, and I think in some ways a lot of companies have separated training from OD also. And we're leaving and forming new organizations and operating separately, training, coaching, transformative. Even the transformative people back in the 70s and 80s, they left ODN. They moved away from it because nobody else was dealing with things as complex as transformative. And now the change management process grew just recently in recent years. And of course, it was called change management again. And half the people think they're the same. OD and OD, I mean, they think they're all working the same now. I think they're not. And I've sat next to them in client meetings where they're there doing their change management, and I'm sitting next to them trying to do different things. And we're running into conflicts constantly. We have a valuable core essence. That's what I'm going to talk about next. That doesn't need to change, but needs for more people to understand what makes OD different. And the world we developed in was very different from where we are today. So, what have you seen that also is creating issues challenging OD? What would you say has made us not be well known as a reputation, professional field where we are involved in that? So, what kind of things have you feel has changed things there, Jeremy? You're muted. I'm sorry. You're muted.
You're muted, Jeremy.
You're muted.
Okay, there we go. Sorry
Yeah.
about that. So I think there's a couple things. I think first of all, when we say organization development, their eyes cloud over. And I'm saying that to you as a blind guy. So
Right.
I'm assuming I'm right. Right.
Right.
And I think so some could argue, some might argue that
Right.
that happens because we do such like we do L&D, we do people development, we do coaching, we do organizational strategy, like we do all these things that quite frankly sound like they're pie in the sky.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
what I've been focusing on as I have these conversations, and it really seems to be working for me, is everything we do relates back to either growing your sales, growing efficiency, growing productivity, or growing your bottom line.
Mm.
And as long as I like I literally I have this little Ford model that I use, right, of different parts of the business. And I
Yeah.
will literally, as we're going through and we're talking about OD stuff or what their problems are, right? I will always bring that back to a loss. Well, how much do you think you're losing in sales?
Yeah.
How long does it take you to complete something?
Yeah.
Right. And the minute you put a number on it, then we're not pie in the sky anymore. And
Yeah.
by the way, that's something that I wish someone would have taught me 20 years ago when I
Mm.
started my business.
Yeah.
That's brilliant.
Yeah.
Thank you. Jeremy's my partner
Yeah.
in ICCL, so he is he's a very brilliant person. The other thing I want to say is the pairing of OD with HR.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
It just really they seem to, and they're kind of like cousins, but they're not in the same family, you know?
That's right. That's right. And I remember it was in the 90s when it happened, and Ulrich was one of the professors that was writing books on that at the time. And what was interesting is I tried to be neutral at first when it started,
Hmm.
because the one new thing they were adding was called a business partner role.
Hmm.
And I wrote a chapter in one of the HR books to talk about why the business partner role had a good potential if they would have followed it. And what I meant by that is, in my chapter, I talk about HR business partners need to understand HR, but they don't have to be deep into how all the transactions are handled in HR, because half of their time they really need to know how to use OD with whatever department they're working with. And
Hmm.
that could have been powerful, in my opinion. And I even taught some people at a pharmacy company in San Francisco. They said, "Would you give us, like a day to train what you think this role could be?" And I did. But what I found out is the chief HR officers always picked the people who have spent the most time in HR and put them in the business partner.
Right.
And that made it more difficult for them to be a different kind of role. And today, my office was right next to Target's headquarters in Minneapolis, and I had 25 students in our masters from there. And I kept asking them, what work are you doing? What work are you doing? Every single one of them was doing HR tasks, and they weren't doing anything that had to do with change and helping things. So I thought they were really missing the OD. And so I also know a friend of mine who had an OD master's and became the HR person. That one was able to tell the difference, and they kept OD separate from HR. But without that at the leader level, they never ever worked well. And so I wanted to say there was a good idea there, but it never got followed through, and that's a shame. And now that it's stuck under HR 15 years or 20 years later, people don't even hardly know the difference. They just say OD is part of HR now. And that's really hurting us. That's
Hmm.
hurting us a lot. And boy, I wish we could just take more of our people and put them into the chief HR leaders. That would really make a big difference. The two friends that I know who did it, they did very, very well, and they were actually promoted beyond where that role was, and they ended up being vice presidents of divisions and stuff because they showed how well they could lead because they understood OD. So it worked out really well for some of them. But anyway, are there any other things that you feel were the challenges that you've experienced that made OD not become well known as a professional field? Anything else that anybody has?
Well, we talked before about, the lack of a certification or some
Yeah,
designation or something. And recently now we've got a few universities offering either the master's or the doctorate in OD, and that I think should help as we go forward, but
yeah,
still have a lot of people. I know it was discussed at the conference in May, the ISODC conference, that anybody can say they're a consultant anybody can come forward and put their
Right.
shingle up, and we don't know that they're more credentialed than the next person. And so it makes it hard for businesses to know, oh, this is a quality person who really understands OD principles versus
Yeah.
the next person.
Yep, and you know that there's about 3 different competencies that have floated around for decades, and that's why nobody can get a certification working very well, because they have different competencies and in what to include in it. The one that I saw last is she was my partner, is the woman from UK who had global culture clients all over the world and did a lot of work, but she was losing. She had some kidney problems and she was not feeling well. She got COVID in 2022, and then she passed away. But the last thing she did, she studied every competency model that was done in the past, and she created a new one, and it's called the OD app. And I think it's still available free, but I don't know that it's on her website anymore, because her family probably closed that by now. But it's possible to get it, and I think I still have access to it, and I'd be happy to send it to anybody. But it came down with 14 competencies, and she was so smart that I think she included everything that was important myself.
Wow.
And the others were 35 competencies or 28 competencies, and things that were just too much for most people to handle. And so we've had that problem, and why we don't have certifications, I think. And I know now there's one that's running with ODN, I suppose, and there's some others that run in other countries. I think even the OD Asian thing has a competency set as well. So if you see what I mean, we move separately and independently too much. And so we really need to do something, like people say, can we merge things and stuff? I want to make sure I cover this when we still have time for this. And this is my latest version, so I don't know that it's perfect. I don't believe in perfect anyway. But here's what I want to say. The core essences, the first one I noticed is common purposes, and I've listed all the ones that I think have always been in OD. And so the choices we have is when we're doing a project or working with a client for change, we need to have purposes. And I say any or all of these. And I've worked on projects where I think we were doing all of these. And as long as we're doing some or all of these, I think we should call it OD, because organization effectiveness was always important. Performance and developing capabilities in the system was always being done. Partnering with the system, which is a critical relational element. That is, we're not doing the work for the people, we're partnering with them. Collaborating and guiding the system's people, not doing it for them or telling them what to do, but working with them so they're building their capabilities. Creating learning for the system, what is unknown, not experienced, and counter to the current system. Creating learning for the system to learn, and then leave systems and people better, let's see, better, in better shape than whenever you go in. I just remember all the founders that I worked with and learned from, they always used to say, whatever you do, make it better for them before you leave. That was what they used to say. So that's one core essence. Systemic scope and depth, clearly scoping change systems and intervening as the actions in systems. So what I mean by this is we need to be always thinking whatever's being asked for is happening in a system with multiple connections between elements and some elements that operate independently. And that's what all systems do. And we don't have to go into all the details that systems thinking teaches you. There's a lot of details and statistics and stuff like that they use. But think about the philosophy. The philosophy is that when you're changing any part of a system, it can be making change in other parts of the system at the same time. And so when we're not thinking about that, or when we're only working with people from one department and leaving the others out, guess what we're doing? We're creating resistance in the system because we're leaving the right people out. So we need to put boundaries around the system that we need to change. And the idea of intervening means coming between. It's to unlock current situations, see the interrelationships among elements and systems in systems, and create appropriate approaches for change and alignment of the changing system. So we're going to make change. It's going to happen in multiple places, and then we have to make sure that we're aligning it. That, I think, is a second piece of essence. The third one is systemic representative data-based assessing of what is the current situation. I have found in our world, we've always had a model that said we start with collecting data. But you know what? A lot of people skip parts of that or they make it very narrow. What we need is systemic and representative, meaning it covers the system and it has representative experiences that can be brought into the data. So we say, what is the current situation? And the data, and not just opinions, will help determine what within the system needs change, focus, and needs to be included. So this is our data up front is very critical, and we used to take way too long to get it. I think we're in a world now where we can do a lot of data collection with technology as well, and we can do it a lot faster. And that's what we need since everything is continuous and speedy now. It's happening faster. The third or fourth is use of yourself as the primary instrument of change. So of course, use of self got in here. And what I think is so important about it is everything that comes into us, we interpret. Everything that we choose to do, we make the choice. And so our use of self is actually very powerful, but it's also can get in our way because of how we do things, what our personality is like, how we connect as partners with the people in the system makes all the difference in the world if whether we're ever going to have good change. Everything that takes place are taken in, seen and understood, decided by you of what you do, and use of your capabilities are done by you. So your strengths are very important. Your vulnerabilities are very important, and your self-assessment is very important when you're using use of self. But it's how we create everything and the impact that we have on other people. And I think that's the other one that's very important. Using value-based thinking. You know, we've always had a set of values in OD, and it's how people work together and changes are designed and executed. So here on the right side, all the values need to be operated. You can't just name values if they're not operationalized and people can't experience them. So humanistic thinking and behavior, been with us a long time. Impact people participation, that is making sure we're getting the right people in participation. They have a voice, they can give inputs, their roles, their decisions, and their engagement. Learning, developing, and growing for individuals and the system. So we're working on helping people get better, and we're also helping the system learn things about running their system better and developing their potential. So we always used to use the word potential. How do we grow people's potential?
Mm-hmm.
Improving organization effectiveness, capabilities of the people and the organization, and bringing the right people together for any change. That one is what struck me well after I was halfway through my career. And that is the leaders would tell us who we can include. And that used to limit us a lot. And I even stopped working with some leaders when they wouldn't let me tell them why we needed to get people from different parts of the system in order to have the right people together to work on the change. And that is what has made a difference whenever I had success. And then
The iceberg of ignorance.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then this one is the next to the last, I think. And what's, how's, whose, where's, and when's. I believe that is the thing we always have to determine and name. It's what needs to be determined, designed, and executed for the specific system, because the system is different than others, and their culture, in order to make change work in their system and culture. Our work needs all these in various forms and timing, and optimizing the social and technical aspects of every system. And I don't want to tell you any specific method. I think there's good methods that everybody knows how to do, but we have to make sure we're dealing with each of them in one way. We start off with the what, and we also start off with the why. Why do we need this change? Then the hows are the big decision-making things. How are we going to do it? Who's going to be involved? Where is it going to happen? And when? Which things happen first and which things happen separate? That's systemic change thinking. And then the last one is change involves both behavioral and organizational aspects. And I have seen people run a lot of projects where they're only working with one or the other.
Mm-hmm.
And if we're not working with people's behavior and the organizational processes and ways that they do work, then we're having a trouble, because change doesn't happen without both of those occurring. So Lewin's field theory is a beautiful one, where we have self, others, and context. And it tells a lot about behavior choices and use of selves and how we use ourselves, because we bring who we are. Whoever we're also mixing with will influence what we're willing to do. And the context we're in, whatever company it is or whatever is regular norms for people, the context tells us a lot about what choices we can make. And then processes and technologies are very critical. They help us create efficient, effective, and optimized socio-technical operations. So this is where I bring that back in. If we have great technology, but it has not been optimized with the people, what we have is a bunch of resistance.
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't help us make change. So we have to be thinking about how the technology works. And we also have to have the people who have to do it to learn from it, and not just be trained somewhere and told how they to do it after it's already completed. I believe the people who have to make the changes need to be one of the people, at least, in the decision-making process. So that's how that helps. I'll stop and see if there's any questions about that before I say this last little piece. What do you think? And you can add anything you want, because I've changed mine 3 or 4 times, but I hope I'm getting close to my basic core. Yeah.
Okay, so I got a little lost as you were going through that.
Okay.
Which isn't it's probably more so that I'm not looking at the slides as a blind guy,
Oh,
right?
I'm sorry.
So
Yeah.
no, that's okay. So so it's making it hard for me to weigh in, is my point.
I get it. Okay. I'd be willing to talk to you more about it, because I realize the visual part helps. And if you're not seeing that, I can understand that's difficult.
I
Can
mean,
you
I
go,
think,
can you
go
show
ahead.
us those? Can you go back and show us those 6 again, Dave?
Oh, yeah.
So when you get back there, give me just the quick 6.
Okay. There's common purposes. What is the purpose of
Right?
our in any client? Okay.
Yep.
Systemic scope and depth, meaning we're
Got it.
putting border around those, and we're working on, and intervening is the way we make actions. We go between, we make things open up a little bit so change can be made. If
Okay.
change can't be made, we're stuck, right?
Got it.
And then having systemic representative data-based assessing of what is the current situation. Getting the data from a number of people, we get a better current situation.
Mhm.
Okay. Using yourself as the primary instrument of change. The way you do things, the way you say things, the way you partner with people, the way you include people, and all that stuff makes a difference. So yes, it's who we are, and we need to understand who we are, and especially things that we might do that get in the way of the change we're trying to do. And then using value-based thinking, like
Yep.
most values we've had for years, but how do we optimize them so people can experience what it's about? And then change involves both behavioral and organizational aspects. So we need to pay attention to how people change behaviors, and also what parts of the organization have, like processes, for example, and technologies that need to be aligned so the organization is effective. That's it. That's it.
Okay, now I
Yeah.
can do it. So here's what's missing for me
Okay.
in that equation, and I hope that that's what you're looking for because I just tend to be that guy.
Whatever you want,
And
whatever
and
you
it
think.
might be that it's buried in there, but I like
Yeah.
to call it out. And I
Go
think
ahead.
sometimes when we don't, it freaks them out, right?
Good.
So
Good.
theory and best practices is woven throughout, but figure out a way to kind of say it's proven, right? Because that is huge for what we do.
Yeah.
Is we're not just making it up, right?
Right.
We're bringing it in. Like I know Kathy, Dana Miller, and whole scale change worked, and
Yeah.
here's why it worked. Therefore, when I build an activity that has a similar thing, I know I'm gonna get the results I want, right?
Okay. Okay.
The other piece that, and I'm not sure it's in there, so that's one reason I'm calling it journey. Change is a journey. It's a roadmap. It
Yeah. Nice.
and it's not like I remember the first time I was sitting in class and had to draw what my version of change as a journey meant,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And all I could do was steps. Well, 25 years later, change as a journey for me, it kind of goes
Yeah. Exactly.
right.
Exactly.
So we're moving forward, but sometimes we've got to circle in order
Yes.
to, and this, by the way, gets into your system and your purpose and
Yep.
all of the other things that you have there. I hope that was what you were looking for.
That's excellent. That's excellent. And that the word flexibility and agility is very critical to us. And we used to use a lot of things with 5 steps and 7 steps, and some people never did it in another order. And if we're not flexible inside of a culture or a system, we could have a lot of problems when we keep trying to do it in the same way in every other organization. I
I
think that,
like to use a diamond,
yeah, Diamond.
and sometimes a diamond because like if I've got, let's say I'm lucky enough to have 4 things that we have to
Is it
do,
a
right?
teardrop diamond? Is it a
I I have no idea because I'm a blind guy, so I know a diamond has 4 areas, and I'll usually
okay,
just tell
okay.
Chat GPT, make it so that people who can see actually understand what the hell I'm saying,
Mm,
right? That's
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I have
And
done it with like that circle back, right?
yeah.
That the
Yeah.
circle's going down. I don't know what they call that.
Yeah, I know. I know. That's good. Thank you for your
You're
contributions, though.
welcome.
Let me just say quickly, simplify how we design and execute change, and you'll see this is simplified for sure. Begin with partnering relationships, and I'll tell you what that means. It means we are not doing the work for them. We are trying to build their capabilities. So we want them to learn how to do the changes in their own organization. And we begin by becoming a partner with them. And partner relationships have been hard to do with some leaders. Some of them don't want to do that. They want you to listen to what they're telling you to do. And that's why we don't get some of the right results. So we start with doing that. And I think when we can't do that in the first month or two, I think we're in a bad contract. So I learned that the hard way.
mhm.
Start with representative database assessments and discovers. That's the thing I said before. We make sure that we're pulling the right people in whose data will give us a clear current system. From data and leaders thinking, we form an initial change team of the right people. This is what I had to fight with some leaders about, and that is getting the right people into the change team, meaning that their experience and their need to make changes needs to be owned by them. They need to be part of how they're going to interpret things and take actions. And the early sense of resistance and support. They need to understand how much resistance is already here. And if we make the wrong steps in the first 2 or 3, we build resistance. We make a lot of the resistance happen. And change systemic boundaries, change the purposes, change design, decisions, processes, and modifications. And some of the right people, by the way, also need to be the best skilled for change, people who have had change experience. A lot of companies have not done that much change. And they need to be experienced and diagonally across the system. They need to see different things through different windows. And when we only see through the top window, we never get all the data that we need. And
Jeremy says, yes, they do both direct engagement in creation and a full microcosm to get the system perspectives in at the beginning.
That's exactly right. Yeah. And we need to learn how to communicate and share with the whole system the whys we're doing it, the whats we're doing it, and as hows get determined, we need to inform all and open space so that others can provide inputs to the core team and continue with regular updates. So this is a way that you keep people included and you actually resist some of the resistance happening. And then continue this pathway and continue to cycle updated data collections along the way. I think we need to use AI and we need to use other things now that'll help us get groups of people who are generating data, let's say every quarter or so, because we learn what already is changing and how our next step is going to work or not. It's a continuous iterative process. And I think we don't always do it that way. And then finally, we need to support those people who are doing the work on change. We need to make a lot of people be joined into change work. And right now, most of the people's job descriptions never have change. A lot of people never have any change on them. And today, I believe we need a lot of key people in the system, not just the leaders, who have to have some support for being able to do change work and keep the senior leadership updated, as well as all the impacted and affected people. Some of the affected people are outside of our organization, and some of the other people who are affected are inside. They may be in a different development, but we keep bringing them in so they can see what change here will be able to be handled by them and which ones won't. So I think that's how this becomes much simpler. And that's where I stop. And I'm willing to have a little more time if you want any questions or comments, anything you want to say about this. It's just where I'm sitting these days on what I want to try to do and pass on. So.
Well, I'll just say thank you so much for what you shared. I always love listening to you, and it helps to bring focus when you're in the middle of things.
Yeah.
It's easy to get caught up in the weeds, and you let
That's
us take a step back and let's look at it from a whole system perspective and get back to the principles of OD. So I appreciate it. And I've got to run for a next appointment. So thank you so much, Dr. Jamieson.
Well, thank you, Diane. Thank you very much.
Yeah, good to see you.
Yep.
Yeah, it was really good to meet you. You and I have never met before. So you're doing some amazing work, and would love to connect sometime and talk further. I'll put my I'll put my LinkedIn in the thing, and then we can just go from there if that works.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
I'll open it up over here so I can see it. Yeah.
Anyone
Yeah,
else?
and my apologies, guys. I'm gonna have to skid out of here. I'm on the planning team for 2 conferences that are happening at the same exact time. So my weekend is
Yeah.
about to go crazy.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I know what you mean. It happens a lot of times.
Well,
Absolutely.
and one of them is the CBODN conference that's happening this weekend in DC. And then the other one is for the American Council of the Blind of Virginia. And so I'm doing workshops for the Council of the Blind of Virginia, and I was on the planning team for the CBODN one. So
Oh, wow. That's great. That's
yeah,
great. Yep.
so it's a little crazy, but please reach out and let's make it happen.
Okay. All right. I'll keep this linked in here.
All right, awesome. Thanks,
Does anyone
Kimmy.
else? Thank you. Does anyone else have any questions or comments?
Yeah, just a quick one. So again, I want to say thank you, Dr. Jamieson. Always get new and valuable ideas. The
Mhm.
key thing that I'm taking away is definitely the leader piece. When we
Yeah.
go as OD specialists, we usually go in and we find a good contact to sponsors. And then we get them to find the leader. I think after hearing you, we got to make sure we can convince the leader, because at the end of the day, if they don't buy in, they give us money, but then they don't buy in, guess what? We go away. So it's
Yeah.
critical that we get the leader in sooner than later. I'm talking about the CEO, whoever owns the total project,
Right.
because and then it allows us to work on stage, off stage. I'm feeling bueno. With a leader like that at that level, we got to learn to work one on one with them and give them the deck to sell to the organization. Because again, we're in the outside, we're not on the inside. And what I found out with working with churches, I can go work with their pastors and I can coach them. But when we present the change, it has to come from the pastor. Otherwise, why is he here talking to us? And so you've got to learn to be on stage and off stage. And when the critical sale for change needs to be made, you're off stage, but you have coached that leader such that they can produce. And then if they need you, they can call on you. At that point, it allows you to speak. I think that all gets back to just socialization, the social tech world. We've got to understand how they're socializing now, which is totally different. But for us, as OD professionals, we got to look at the one that I see is the International Coaching Confederation. They have competencies and they sell themselves as an educator or a not an observer. They come in and audit, right? But that's where they stick. But now when others use them, they say they are ICF certified. Now I'm getting this with in the church community. So they're ICF certified, but we know you don't have to be, but they publicize that. And so now they become a secondary to ICF. So now I get back to what you're saying. The networking of the systemic piece, we got to
Mm-hmm.
sell that on the front end and not the
Mm-hmm.
back end. So I
Mm-hmm.
appreciate you more than you ever know, and it's going to help me. And I'm going to shut up now. Thank you, though.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm just happy I still have a brain after all the crazy things I've gone through. Yeah. So, but I really want to help people, and I'm not ready to quit yet at all. So thank you for being here and for joining this. And I hope that I'll get some of this stuff written once I'm sitting good on it, and I'll get that out in the next year for sure, next 6 months maybe. And we got the OD Journal with Joanne, and my OD Review with I'm the editor of, so I can do it either way probably. So
What
anyway,
is my OD review through?
what is what?
My OD review?
Oh yeah, that's the journal from ODN that
Oh, okay.
is owned by ODN, and it used to be called the OD Practitioner,
Oh, yeah.
but it started in 1969, and we have a large archive of everything too. But yeah, I've been the director. I've been the editor since 2019, the end of 2019. I
Oh,
started.
okay.
And so
Cool.
yeah, and I have a good team, and so that's helpful. And I really like seeing what we do, and I hope we start doing new things in all the writing about OD, and maybe helping this problem that I keep saying about our field, if we could pull it together a little bit. So
Thank you so much. And we'll be in touch for sure.
Absolutely.
I just want to say thank you, Dave. You made my 1 hour late train ride enjoyable.
Oh,
Oh,
good. Well, I'm glad you're getting a workout while we're talking.
Well,
so
I love
Pierre,
well,
that, Pierre. I
where
know
are
you're
you
good at it.
today?
Yeah, I
I'm
love
uh,
it.
I, I'm in Paris. I was coming from Montpellier on train, and it was 1 hour late. So I enjoyed a lot. As I always do, I enjoy
Mhm.
your wide perspective of OD,
Well, thank you.
and I do agree with every point you mentioned here,
Oh,
except maybe one thing, if I may.
okay. Well, go
The
ahead.
cer the certification piece, I'm against it. All the guys that gives all these certified coaches, are they delivering a good
Yeah,
job?
yeah,
All those who are certified PMI, PME, all the project management certifications, are they delivering a good job? It's not the
yeah,
certification that delivers the good job. It's
yeah.
something else. What is? I still don't have the answer. I'm just asking the questions as much as you
That's a
are.
good question. That is a good question. Absolutely. I'm really tired of leaders not leading change, but turning it over to project people, and project management is running it all. And
Mhm.
I'm afraid that's why we haven't had that good outcome, like up to 70 or 80%, instead of having 50% that everybody says doesn't quite work. And that's been tiring for all of us, I think. Thank
Bye,
you.
guys.
Bye bye.
Bye bye. Bye bye.
Yep.
Thanks so much, Dave.
All right.